Yet had any threat appeared, I would have struck it down in a heartbeat. For 100 years I stood my watch, and as it ends, I tell you this: patience is a...
Yeah, I'm not impressed. Yeah, not impressed. Fight me. Not impressed. Alright, class, settle down and let me tell you a story. We're doing this. Alright, it ends tonight. Right here, right now. No foreplay, no lube. It will end tonight. This thing has been like what? Almost a year in the making. We had to go on a hiatus. Last time we tried to finish this particular project off, my tech was down. I don't even know if you can hear me right now, but internet was down, and before that, right now there's some sort of a storm going on outside. But guess what? It's gonna happen right here, right now. Alright? Deal with it or bear with it. It's gonna happen. This is it. Right. Every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained by Bricky Part 2. We've had the Part 1 like months ago. We just haven't gotten around this one because of all that crap that we had to deal with. Anyways,
this video is part 2 in a 2-part series
again,
on
my
every
bad.
faction re-explained. If you've not seen part 1, you were either snatched by the
Don't worry, I will link Part 1.
YouTube algorithm, or you don't let anything, not even common sense, hold you back. And for that, well, I wish I could be that strong. The quest to find the Primarchs was expansive.
Maybe if we had any common sense, we wouldn't be here, but I guess we don't. That's why we're here. And apparently, we are in the quest to find the Primarchs, and my mouse isn't cooperating for some reason. But it seems like our internet connection is good, so it's good. It's good, right? It's good. I think we're gonna be fine for tonight.
And treacherous, to the point where they really should write a book about it.
Yes,
Despite
they
never
did.
seeing the Emperor before in their lives, the Primarchs all instinctively knew who the Emperor was. Whether it's his psychic connection to him or just plain old intuition,
It's Daddy.
Giant golden god is a bit of a giveaway. The Primarchs all lived their own lives, and some lived substantially better lives than others. Rabute Gilliman of the Ultramarines rose through the ranks of his worlds and ended up turning an entire sector into a high-functioning society, where others, like Mortari...
By the way, Rabute Gilliman, I am so glad we finally discovered, or we finally find out how Rabute, or how his first name is pronounced, because for the life of me, since we started this entire series last year, I honestly had no idea how to pronounce his name. Is it Robute? Of course, it's Robute, Robute. But now we know. See, this is why we finish jobs.
lived on the poisonous hellscape of Barbarous under the boot heel of his own adopted father. When the Emperor arrived, some wanted to play a little bit of catch with their dad at first, and some didn't trust the baseball bat he was carrying, and some didn't want to play at all. Eventually, one by one, the Emperor returned his sons to his side to bring them back together as one happy family. A family who needed a good cleaning. Are you tired of boring old soap? Is your son the foulest being ever? Do your eyes sting when he comes near? Well, clean that man right back up with the power of Cheeky. That's right, the brand new moisturizing bar soap brought to you by Moist Critical.
Question is, why soap? Is it because deodorant's a little bit more complicated to mix up? Because here's the thing, right? Anime people, video game people, tabletop people are notorious for poor hygiene. It's a thing, alright? But question is, why soap? Why not, go straight up for deodorant? Because if you guys remember Warhorse, the guys who developed what's his name? Henry? No, what is the name of that game? Kingdom Come Deliverance, Dungeons but no dragons. Here's the thing, before they thought they were going to get expansions and stuff like that or DLCs, but instead what they first came up with was soap. So is it because deodorant's harder to make? That's why they settled for soap? Comments please.
And Bricky approved. Nurgle hates it, but you'll love it. Bar soap is always...
I guess this is better than that gamer stuff knockoff I encountered during a con. My god, it was so bad. I mean, hopefully they recalibrated their formula now so it would actually taste decent. Or at least, better enough that whoever's trying to come up with it or whomever's trying to drink it won't immediately spit it out.
So sticky and has a ton of fuss, but now you'll be
Yes, it
glowing to the
does.
surprise of Lehman Russ. Cheeky soap is so good, we didn't even take a down payment for the sponsor. That's right, we love this soap so much, we are operating on 100% commission. We are supported purely and only by those of you who buy Cheeky. It is the best bar soap we have ever used. That is not a hyperbole. Your
I mean, Bricky's part of the old YouTube guard. So he's definitely in with Moist and all those other guys that supposedly maintain the inner circle or the higher echelon.
satisfaction is guaranteed. Take it from the man himself.
Bricky's right. It's very good.
Enjoy a multitude of flavors, including lo-fi lavender, Pope Francis, just soap, touch grass, and absolute cinnamon. Cheeky alone has made me swap back to bar soap as my primary choice. No more liquid soap for this brick. Cheeky is the play. Go ahead and go to usecheeky.com/Bricky or code Bricky for 10% off your purchase and domestically support these videos. That's code Bricky at usecheeky.com/Bricky or click the link in the description to learn more. Get clean now.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, so half his sons turned on him?
I'm not really sure what to do now with my minis, actually. It's like, I keep them in storage. I keep them in their travel box like 99.9% of the time, and I haven't had time to paint. By the way, we're painting this Sunday, right? We're painting and we're unboxing more horrible financial decisions.
After the Emperor was able to bring all of his sons back into the fold again, he sent them on their way with his end goal in mind, reclaiming the lost worlds of humanity. Each of his Primarchs fanned out across the galaxy to accomplish this goal, but the one they were expected to report to was his favored son, and the first one found, allegedly, which was Horus. Horus was granted the title of War Master.
This being the first one found means he's considered to be the firstborn. It's a lot of responsibility being the firstborn. So maybe that's why, Father, why have thou forsaken me?
And he certainly lived up to Big E's expectations, which were very specific and set by Big E himself to all of his sons. However, either
I don't like it when he calls the Emperor Big E. I don't know why. Alright. It feels diminutive. Am I using that right word, right? I don't know.
Intentionally or not, the Emperor did not mention to his sons some of the more chaotic aspects of the galaxy. Horus himself, while in the process of reclaiming a more advanced human world, was informed of the existence of chaos gods, a factoid that Horus initially did not believe. To him, it was a bit unfathomable to think that his father would admit such significant information on the inner workings of the galaxy.
Because if I remember, in Horus, what was that? Okay. Hold on. What is wrong with the capture? Swear to God, I'm going to switch. Anyways, if I remember correctly in Horus Racing, he knew of the warp. Apparently when he was telling, what's the name of that guy that up and down? The Fornival, the newest member of the Fornival. His new favorite, the up and down thing you do so well. Hold on. Let me just jujule it. What's his name again? Comments, please. Horus Racing. Protagonist. We made an entire video about it, goddammit. Garviel Loken, right? After Garvey and Loken encountered Samus, Loken was so disturbed by the entire thing, by the whole encounter, that Horus had to basically explain to him why the Emperor quit the campaign or quit the crusade. Excuse me. And it's because he had to study the warp. But apparently at this particular point in time, he wasn't aware of chaos back then, because chaos was only mentioned at the far end of the book when the meeting with the Interrex went tits up. And the whole explosion thing happened because one of the Interrex captain, the Interrex officer, was about to tell or just, discovered that they knew nothing of the warp. That's why he was laughing at Garvey and Loki, that they were looking at this weapon. They were in some sort of a museum. They were looking at the weapon, and the Interrex officer realized that these guys, Garvey and Loki and company, did not know anything about the warp. And then, that's when the explosion thing happened, and that's when things went tits up. So they could have discovered chaos. I'm so sorry. Let me just correct myself, right? They know of the warp, but the problem is they did not know of chaos. Or Big E knew of chaos. He simply didn't tell his sons. What makes it so conflicting for Horus is that I'm guessing he felt betrayed because he wasn't told of chaos. Yet some of the other sons in the book Horus Rising, he was told of there were other sons who knew of chaos and other chaos gods, but not him apparently. And in Horus Rising, just to be clear, at least this is how I understood it. The Interrex were not only aware of the warp but also of chaos. However, and they discovered that these guys, these Marines, especially Garviel Loken, realized that they knew nothing of chaos. That's why he laughed at Garviel Loken. And then he was about to expound, that Interrex officer was about to expound on the whole warp and chaos thing, until that whole explosion thing happened, until they started fighting and they had to evacuate Horus before they could be told of the whole chaos and the whole warp thing. Anyways, comments if I'm wrong. It's been almost a year since I've read that book, and I am still on false gods at this point, because time hasn't been kind to me in a sense, I had to go on hiatus and everything. But anyways, let's keep on going before we go off on another tangent. And like I said, we will finish this tonight, right here, right now. It ends tonight.
However, he soon realized this was the truth, and this betrayal was unacceptable. With the astronomical weight put on his shoulders and his father immediately leaving it all in his hands, combined with the slow corruption of his mind by those closest to him, he began to change.
Slow corruption of his mind by those closest to him, because here's the thing, right? Even though Horus knew nothing of chaos and the whole warp, he knew that the Emperor, he told Garviel Loken that the Emperor quit the crusade in order to study the warp, but the whole chaos thing is a completely different thing entirely. And if I'm not mistaken, if I got it right, he knew nothing of chaos. The Emperor kept it from him, and that's the reason, one of the biggest reasons why he felt betrayed. And now here we are. But anyways, again, I'm not really sure if I got it right. I'm new with regards to this whole thing. Well, not that new. We've been going at this for almost a year now. Again, feel free to correct me in the comments. Let's keep on going.
His tune. Horus began amassing a following behind his father's back with several other Primarchs and began to formulate plans to usurp him from his throne on Terra. While this was occurring, Magnus the Red tried to FaceTime his dad back on Terra, and that resulted in the shattering of a protective barrier between Terra and the demons of the warp. Due to this damage,
that part I am not aware of, the whole FaceTiming thing.
The Emperor was forced to sit on the Golden Throne to assure that it would continue to function. Ultimately, half of the Primarchs would fall to chaos, and the remaining half would fight back viciously against their brothers. Horus eventually gained the upper hand and arrived in orbit above Terra itself, and after antagonizing his father enough, the Emperor temporarily removed himself from the throne, strategically putting his old friend there as a
it's
seat warmer,
Malcador.
and went to confront Horus himself on the Vengeful Spirit, his flagship. The Emperor faced down his son, and after a heated battle and 64 novels, the Emperor managed to obliterate Horus on a subatomic level, but not before his favorite son was able to mortally wound the Emperor. As the dust settled and the traitors fled from Terra, the Emperor's body was dragged back onto the Golden Throne, where it sits permanently to assure that it continues to function. A corpse forced to constantly hold back the horrors of the warp and guide humanity with his pale light. And that light is flickering.
And here's the thing, I remember this girl. I was trying to tell this girl, which is not a good line. I was trying to explain to this girl basically the story of Warhammer 40. Oh my god, that is like so typical. But she actually asked, okay? She actually asked. She was part of my D&D group. And she asked that about what the story of Warhammer 40k is. And I told her, Dune. And of course, you had to expect that the whole thing feels a bit derivative of Dune. But here's the thing, right? Dune has how many books? I've only read the first one. I guess 26 plus. If I'm not mistaken, Dune has like 26 books in its entirety. So I'm not really sure if there's a whole Golden Throne thing. But basically the concept of an AI uprising, splitting the entirety of mankind, that's a Dune thing. So anyway, so she just pointed it out. I remember she pointed it out. But with regards to the Emperor sitting on the throne after being mortally wounded by Horus, is it derivative of something from Dune? If any of you guys have read the both novels or both series, can you please put it down in the comments?
There, the remaining members of the traitors to the Emperor fled to their respective safe havens. These are the veterans of the Long War, the spiteful, and to them, the wronged. Those who would let the galaxy burn if it means the Imperium gets caught in the flames. These are the
Chaos.
And what are the achievements of your fragile Imperium? It is a corpse rotting slowly from within while maggots writhe in its belly. It was built with the toil of heroes and giants, and now it is inhabited by frightened weaklings to whom the glories of those times are half-forgotten legends. I have forgotten nothing, and my wisdom has expanded far beyond mere mortal frailties. The Horus
What? It's a dying empire.
Heresy saw the collapse of the Imperium.
But then again, why fall to chaos?
As we knew it at the time, and half of the Space Marine legions fell to the ruinous powers. Though the favored son, War Master Horus, was killed and the rebellion ended, the heretical forces retreated to the warp and remain a constant threat to this day. The twisted reminder of what the temptations of the warp may bring, the Chaos Space Marines act as a mirror to the loyal legions, and as time progresses, their warp taint further changes them to suit the needs of their patron deity. Though marred and absolutely mangled by the ruinous powers, they are still unmistakably Space Marines in stature and shape, and according to them, they have never been more free. After the heresy, the loyal legions of
Because maybe that's all you need. Freedom, baby.
Space Marines became very strict in their organization, and their separation into separate chapters with capped numbers and other formalities was done to prevent any
I've always wondered about that. Like, after the heresy, they capped their own numbers. But what about the traitor legions? Obviously, they didn't. Is that one of the reasons why the Empire is on the back foot? Or why the Empire is backpedaling, or is almost always seem to be losing? Comments, please.
heresy from happening again. The Chaos Space Marines are a bit different. Ultimately, these Marines are subject to the primary legions that fell to Chaos in the first place. The majority of these legions, the Black Legion, the Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and the Night Lords, are supporters of Chaos Undivided, either enjoying the powers of all Chaos gods or sometimes shunning them altogether. But a few of them follow a very specific Chaos god. Thousand Sons are followers of Tzeentch, the Death Guard follows Nurgle, Slaanesh has their claws in the Emperor's Children, and the World Eaters are avid followers of Khorne. From there, the legions themselves are separated into roaming war bands that may go under their own unique names or may stake a claim to one of the primary legions. Most of the gear and armor of a Chaos Space Marine remains the same, but stylistically it changes quite a bit to reflect the intention of the legion or their patron god. The Death Guard's armor has become rotted and full of gaping mouths and plague-filled boils. The World Eater's sharp and violent armor reflects their bloodthirst, and the chaotic noise of the Emperor's Children armor, nipple rings included, pleases Slaanesh greatly. Due to the taint of chaos, the armor...
We knew that entire thing was coming, right? I mean, it's Slaanesh.
Itself becomes less about plating and more about a new skin for any given Chaos Space Marine.
Yep.
Though the Chaos Space Marines have no true fear of death or numbers diminishing, there are still major recruitment efforts for their legions. However, the conscription of these recruits is a lot more chaos-fueled and is more of a forced assimilation, and in some instances, breeding. The organ implementations and other modifications are
I'll
the same.
leave you guys to actually Google that one for yourselves, but that's definitely, the whole breeding thing is definitely one of the darkest chapters of the 40k universe.
Of a gene seed remains the same, but the result is a hell of a lot different. Understanding Chaos Space Marines is a difficult exercise. If we took my original video 5 years back and looked at the Imperial Knights section, it mainly focuses on big stompy robots. Now that I understand more, I can discuss the Code Chivalric, the Throne Mechanicum, Squires, and Monarchs, and bring some more context to it all. To assume Chaos Space Marines are simply the opposite side of Space Marines would be foolish, for once you understand the plight of their Primarchs, it can provide a context always needed. Horus himself turned through an overwhelming weight on his shoulders and lies told by his father. But what of Angron? Angron lived as a slave gladiator for his planet's master.
For me, Angron was the most misunderstood. I mean, all he wanted was to basically join his brothers and sisters, but the Emperor said no! He was denied of the simplest thing. I mean, he's already messed up! And for some reason, the Emperor couldn't resonate the understanding that what he wanted was simple, was to join his brothers and sisters at that specific point in time. Because if he truly believed in the power of his son, he would have let him go during that particular point.
Who took Dark Age technology and shoved it into his brain, so experiencing any emotion other than rage was agony for him. He finally leads a revolt for his fellow gladiators and frees himself from the confines of servitude. The Emperor finds him and says he will take him home, but Angron refuses. He will fight with his friends against the tyranny of his slave owners to the last.
There we go, and the Emperor said no. That was the problem. See, that could have just continued the campaign and the whole thing would have been done one less traitor's son, but no. Anyways,
the final last stand with him and his closest friends, slave gladiators, all of them outnumbered and on the verge of death, the Emperor forcefully teleports Angron to his flagship and none of his compatriots, leaving Angron to live and watch all of his friends die. You kept that mule core Pharaon. Russ kept his kin friends. The Lion kept Luther. Humans, brothers, and foster fathers, saved and raised into Legion ranks. But not me. Not Angron, no. Did the Emperor teleport his gold-wrapped custodians down to help me in my army? No. Did he free the warhounds and order them to battle? Fight alongside me? No. Did he save my brothers and sisters the way he spared and honored?
Yeah, we could definitely tell that this one's Big E's fault.
The lion's kin the way he honored Corferon? No, no, and no. No mercy for Angron. Angron the Oathbreaker. Angron the Betrayer.
Yep.
Conrad Kurz lived as a lonely boy scrounging the dregs of a hive city plagued by constant visions of an assassin sent to murder him by his own father. Lorgar was born on a world of chaos worshippers with abusive parents, and the Emperor decided the best way to reprimand him was destroy his holy city. The Emperor robbed Mortarion of vengeance and suppressed Magnus at every turn. The question isn't why the Primarchs rebelled. The question is, why didn't they sooner? To them, they are not the betrayers. They are the betrayed. They were under the boot of a golden tyrant, and they finally could be free from his heel. Of course, things have changed a lot since the heresy, and the Primarchs of the Chaos Space Marines that have survived the fall are a twist.
They look different now. To be honest, I've always wondered why that was Fulgrim's. This is not Fulgrim, by the way. Why Fulgrim ended up like that. I mean, among all the transformation, can someone please put it down in the comment if GW decided to provide an explanation somewhere as to why he ended up looking like that? I mean, among all the possibilities.
Variant of what they used to be. They have all, for the most part, ascended to the position of Demon Prince and act as a direct connection between their god and their legion. However, due to the nature of the transformation and dedication to a particular chaos god, their actions tend to be separate from their legion's actions. Fulgrim, for example, is so infatuated with being a Demon Prince of Slaanesh that he is at times far too focused on his own personal perfection as opposed to conquest and sitting around like—
See, how exactly did this equate to personal perfection? Just a thought.
Like Frankfurter on his throne. Meanwhile, Lorgar is being stalked by a bird, so he's always on edge. The most adamant against the temptations of the Chaos Gods, Perturabo, was even made a Demon Prince as a reward for being the one who did the most work on the group project. Chaos Space Marines are a fascinating faction, because there is a great deal of cognitive dissonance that is represented in them. Depending on which faction you follow, your devotion to Chaos is a sliding scale, and the representation in the universe is so varied. Some are there to reap a high tally of kills for their patron deity, while others are there purely to destroy the Imperium who wronged them. Some are there to torture and maim.
I mean, the Empire that wronged them, I think it's a thing. I think it's a much better thing, actually.
And some are there to conquest and conquer. There is no unifying glue. They fight each other as much as they fight everyone else, and their machinations are entirely up to their warband. You have all walked different paths, but together, we have come to the same destination. The Emperor has failed us. The Imperium has failed us all. It has failed us by the laxity of its laws, the decadence of its culture, and in the injustices heaped upon those of us who serve the most loyally. It has failed us by never recognizing our virtues, never rewarding us for the blood we shed and bringing about its ascendancy, and never providing unity when we needed it most. It has failed us by being flawed to its core, imperfect in its pursuit of a perfect culture, and in its weakness against the encroachment of Xenos breeds that seek to twist humanity to alien ends. And it has failed us, most of all, by being founded upon lies. The Imperium is forged by a dangerous deceit and erodes us all by demanding we sacrifice truth on the altar of necessity. This is an empire.
That's something. Sacrifice truth on the altar of necessity.
Propagated by sin that deserves to die. And here on Istvan 5, we begin.
One of these days, we're gonna check out whatever happened to Istvan. But my boy... our boys, the Salamanders.
The Purge. From these ashes shall rise the new kingdom of mankind. An imperium of justice, faith, and enlightenment. An imperium heralded, commanded, and protected by the avatars of the gods themselves. An empire strong enough to stand through a future of blood and fire. Naturally, however, as I have said before, Space Marines do not make up the bulk of
See, here's the thing, right? I read somewhere that Horus's campaign didn't have a leg to stand on for the simple reason that everyone wanted to go their own way. Like, just like Bricky said, they spend as much time fighting the Empire as they do, fighting each other. So he was on some sort of a deadline that at a certain point, his fellow traitor brothers are going to break away. So he needed to go at the whole. He needed to go at it as quickly as possible, as fast as possible, or else, they'd simply just scatter. Since, you know what, their only glue was vengeance against the Emperor, and that was it. At a certain point, like for example, you've got a guy like Fulgrim. I don't think vengeance was his thing. Perfection was his thing. He didn't need to kill the Emperor for that. And then there's the others. But anyways, let's keep on going.
The fighting force in the Imperium. So it would be ludicrous for me to not mention their dark cousins. The Code Chivalry is the sign of the power of the Imperial Knights. But what about the ruinous powers claimed during the
I'm so sorry. We're having dinner. Like I said, this thing ends tonight. Ends right here, right now. Dark Mechanicum just wasn't here. If I'm not mistaken, during the first 40k faction explained, it wasn't here during the original, so I'm glad that it's here now.
Horus heresy extended beyond just the Space Marines and the Primals. Mars itself was subject to a revolution that saw half of them fall to chaos as well. And some of the once loyal knight houses saw themselves swearing fealty to the dark gods. The falling of these factions allows for the war machine of chaos to continue uninterrupted and to have firepower equal to that of the Imperium itself. The Dark Mechanicum, as the name suggests, is the chaos-affiliated branch of the Mechanicus, and have a lot more free reign, much like the freedoms of the Chaos Space Marines. The seeds of the Dark Mechanicum were planted fairly early due to some of the Mechanicum not really seeing the Emperor as the Omnissiah immediately, and Horus exploited this to allow the schism to happen a bit more naturally. Unlike their Imperial brothers, the Dark Mechanicum have the ability to invent and innovate. What a concept. While also utilizing
Alright, anyways, for me, the schism of Mars actually makes sense because you've got this very religious group of scientists, right? So, everyone's in with the program, let's follow this big golden god thing. He is the Omnissiah. And here's the thing, right? If you're going to lead a group of scientists, the purpose is innovation. However, for some, it's simply going to make sense because for some, hey, how come this big golden god of ours is putting a cap on our innovation? How come it won't let us, research this or research that? So, yeah, I mean, among all the rebellion, because for me, Horus, the whole thing was shaky in a sense that there is no war, or there is no war, daddy lied to me, so we're gonna try and take him out. Whereas here it actually makes sense. Here, there's a reason why there's the Catholics and Protestants IRL, so roughly the same thing in a sense, I guess. Am I interpreting this whole thing correctly? Feel free to correct me again in the comments, please.
forbidden technologies such as the Silica Animus or AI. The Dark Mechanicum do have their own desires to find lost technologies and put them to use, but they're more interested in taking ancient and forbidden technology from Imperial worlds and activating them for their own purposes. Because what good is a bunch of knob and tube wiring if you don't overload it with as many extension cords as possible? However, instead of being clear-cut and more generalized creations, the inventions of the Dark Mechanicum are inherently tied with the warp and its demons. Genetic experimentation and modification, the fusion of man and machine are exceptionally common, and no creation is more reflective of this than the demon engines. Instead of regular tanks and vehicles, the demon engines are machines bound with the presence of demons to make them living war machines. Unlike the vehicles of the Imperium, who are able
I'm sorry, with regards to the Shikism of Mars, um, of course, my only source have been audio books, but I've always wondered about the machine spirits. I have yet to actually encounter any work that properly explains what exactly constitutes a machine spirit. But apparently, at this particular point, they can be corrupted. Ergo, here we have these things. But again, if you guys can suggest where I can read up or where I can watch up on with regards to as to what exactly constitutes the machine spirit, because I've always thought maybe this is AI. Since we've got demons and we've got gods that manifest themselves, the tangible, that actually make themselves tangible, why not AI? So again, please comments, help your boy out.
Mechanicus priest may be there to aid in its repair. A warpsmith sorcerer is there to essentially repair and irritate the demon engine so that it can be a more effective killing machine. In certain factions, like the bitter and siege-loving Iron Warriors, they will lure demons with the promise of glory and easy bloodletting, only to then forcibly trap them into these demonic engines to use as weapons of war against the Imperium. Some lesser gods, like Vashtor the Archifane, is also a contract and arms dealer for the demonic stuff that comes out of chaos. Many demons may sign a pact with Vashtor in the soul forges of the warp, and in doing so are given the weapons of war to kill as much as they can. Should they do so, excellent, you may keep it. Should you not, I hope you enjoy your soul work.
See, I've never even heard of Vashtor. Because as far as my reading goes with the Dark Mechanicus, I've only read about the Dark Mechanicus, or the actual specific Shikism of Mars. So, if you guys, again, help your boy out, feel free to drop in some links on the comments.
Working in the forges for all eternity. That's what you signed with blood and oil. In addition, much like their ties in the Loyalist realm, the Dark Mechanicum and the Chaos Knight houses are deeply intertwined. There were, of course, many Knight houses that swore fealty and bent the knee to War Master Horus during the heresy, but a good portion of them had no choice, as they were absorbed by warp storms and corrupted into compliance. Many of these Chaos Knights reflect the very early Dark Age technology knights with more corrupted weapons. The Throne Mechanicum, which once had a noble sitting and taking control of generations of previous drivers and taming a beast, is now a saddle to a monstrosity of wrath and hatred. The nobles of the Chaos Knights fight to aggravate and bring the machine to their will while combating the corrupted minds of their fallen ancestors. Some of these nobles may do such a good job that they themselves fuse into the throne itself and become one with the knight. If a noble dies, no worries at all. Unlike the Imperial ones that require a pilot, a demon can hop into the cockpit and control it instead. The Knight World...
That's something! A demon can just jump in and subvert the machine spirit.
Also see full corruption as well. Where there were once peasants, there are now cultists, and the goal of the Chaos Knights are just as chaotic as the gods they follow. Some are sent to war by the ruinous powers, others may protect Dark Mechanicum Forge worlds, and others still may be so hyped up on the ruinous powers that they are just aimless and reckless, hoping to unravel the fabric of the universe itself. Though the aspect of nobility is still there with the Chaos Knight, but it's hardly the same as it is on the Imperial side. As opposed to a beautiful knightly stallion, the knights here are horrifying and unpredictable monstrosities, fueled in part by the agony of the memories of the ancestors trapped within. An invasion by a house of Chaos Knights is a horrifying thing. One might ask, how do knights enter the battlefield? Normally they can be deployed via dropships the standard way, but Imperial Knights can be deployed with a drop keep, a gigantic knight keep.
Here's the thing. Alright, we're gonna go off the tangent on the whole World War II thing, on the whole tank. Because what most people don't understand about armor, modern and old, tanks just, can't drive up from point A to point B. It has to be transported there. That's why I'm pretty sure you guys have seen on the news or on some random videos of these tanks being transported via trucks, via trailer trucks, or via train. Basically, you see those empty flatbeds, just full of tanks. Because here's the thing, right? Tanks can't run forever. They can't, run for miles. You just can't drive from point A to point B and get to the battlefield. No, it has to be transported to the battlefield. And after a certain point, it has to be maintained. And like, of course, your car, which you can get a change oil at least like once a year or after like 5,000 kilometers. Actually, in some brands, you don't even have to bother. Tanks, imagine, are more fickle than that. They have to be maintained in less than like 1,000 kilometers. Or something like that. That you just can't, simply drive from point A to point B. There is a limit to it. But here we have drop keeps, which, well, as a form of transport, they literally just drop an entire castle in the middle of a battlefield.
With like towers and stuff, will hurtle towards the surface like a drop pod and be slammed into the ground with an excessively thunderous crash. Then, massive drawbridges slam down, banners unfurl, and huge horns play the song of their people as these lumbering robots charge out of their, again, drop keep to fight for the Imperium. So imagine what a warp-fueled version of this could look like.
If you get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
Chaos Knights have such a presence, the warp fluctuates in their tread. They bring doom, dread, and despair across the battlefield. Warp storms occur overhead, and psychic phenomenon cling to them. A Chaos Knight will arrive either in some warp-debased platform, or perhaps a portal itself, or climb out of a pool of blood. As the air gets heavy, the enemy feels a crippling sense of paranoia, and the sky begins to rain blood, acid, and God knows what else.
I've only encountered a knight or someone actually, brought a titan to a game. Like, only once, right? And guess what? In our little island, or in the little island where I live, no one can actually stand up to it. So the owner, what he does is he simply uses it as a plot point every game week. Hey guys, you want me to bring my Titan? We can just use it as a plot point or something. And that was it, because no one can stand up to it in terms of points. No one can fight it.
The horrors of the warp have resulted in a dramatic change in technology in the favor of their forces. Though in practice, it is a horror beyond comprehension, their baseline desires don't seem that radical on paper. They are creative builders, working to innovate and improve technology while utilizing anything they can to accomplish their STEM goals. Looking at the dark forces of chaos and the Emperor now on his golden throne, humanity is fractured. The Emperor himself is the guiding light for warp travel for humanity, and in being that exists as a beacon for the entire species. Without him, things would get somehow worse. Therefore, he needs his protectors. Where a Thunder Warrior wasn't enough for his armies, and half of his Space Marines turned traitor, the Emperor's personal bodyguards are something else entirely. They are not the fallible Astartes, nor are they a nightmarish concoction of organs and indoctrination. They are built and gene-crafted, with science bordering on magic. They number 10,000 strong, and each of them is
so 10,000 compared to the 1,000 each chapter. Alright.
The hero. They are the...
I'm gonna keep my criticism until the end of this particular segment, okay?
Rare is the battle where an Emperor's custodians outnumber our foes. We are ever beset, surrounded upon all sides by heresy and foulness, just as is Terra itself. Yet, like the throne world, we stand resolute, indefatigable, indomitable. Let the enemy come. Let them darken the horizon with their numbers. Still, we will prevail. Though the Emperor sits rotting on the golden throne, his talons remain sharp. The Talons of the Emperor was the name given to the most elite forces at his disposal. The left hand of his talons comes in the form of the Sisters of Silence, psychic blanks that scour the galaxy to claim souls, to fuel the Astronomicon in the form of the Great Tide. 1,000 psychers sacrificed daily to keep the Emperor of Mankind alive, dragged into the black ships of the Silent Sisterhood. The right hand of the Emperor's protectorate, his golden bodyguards that serve him and only.
Maybe if it costs that many lives, maybe, just maybe, we could Hunger Games this bitch. Like, you know, if all it costs is like a few handful of berries, maybe it's time for the Empire to just, go down. Because what would be the point, right? 1,000 lives per day.
Him. These are the Custodians. While the members of the Space Marines went out to take back the galaxy, the Legio Custodes stood back and kept a close watch over the Emperor himself. The Custodes are, in a sense, similar to Space Marines in that they are genetically modified super soldiers clad in power armor, but that is where the similarities stop. Their genetic makeup seems to be made from the Emperor himself, or at least something quite close. And the precision of their creation predates the development of the Space Marines and even the Primarchs. Unlike Space Marine recruitment, where there's a process undertaken when a subject is at least somewhat grown, a Custodian's process begins at infancy. The methods in which they are made are
so they take babies instead of just regular kids. Got it.
Secret. But what is known is that at the very beginning, each Custodian was made by the Emperor himself. Regardless of the bioalchemical process, the process is exceptionally long and grueling, and only a handful of selected aspirants make it to the end. Those that do are clad in the most regal and effective armor in the Imperium. Commonly, a Custodian is seen carrying a Guardian Spear, an utterly yoked up version of the staves the Praetorian Guards of the Emperor in Star Wars had. They are also clad with specific shields and blades, but the most interesting thing with all of their gear is that due to the meticulous and dedicated maintenance and preservation of their armor and gear, these items are the same ones they used 10,000 years ago. The Custodians do not age biologically, so some of the veterans in the Guard may be several thousand years old, and unlike the Space Marines, they fight entirely as a solo force. When a line of Custodians is holding back waves of enemies, they operate independently. There are no battle formations, there are no squad tactics. Each Custodian is the main character, trailed by serfs and servitors, tasked entirely to reload their weapons. They fight with a singular purpose, if not action. Groups of Custodians will dispatch
Because why not, right?
enemy after enemy, their spears coming within inches of each other, but never close enough for a killing blow. Their strikes are intentionally defensive, allowing their opponents to attack 1 to 2 times before parrying.
Of course, I think he's talking about the tabletop at this point, right? Am I right? Can someone please put it down in the comments? Because I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks, I have been trying to read up, and I have yet to encounter actual Custodes getting into action. Because that was my... okay, fine. We're gonna have it right here, right now. That was my thing against the Custodes from the first, when we started this thing. Because here's the thing, right? Most of them, some of them has been standing guard for over 5,000, 10,000 years, whatever, without actually seeing any action whatsoever. Fine, they have superior everything, but I doubt that any of them have actual experience in combat because they've been standing in the same wall for the past 1,000 years. I know, they have. Yeah, I know someone that commented they have training. They have training sequences. They have training days, whatever. But here's the thing, right? They have some of them, I believe, have no actual combat experience, which doesn't help at all. So to be honest, I don't know why they're so OP'd. I mean, if all for example, you've got this one guy. Just humor me for a moment here, alright? Who's been standing in front of a door for like 5,000 years. Right? He's been training for 5,000 years, but guess what? He's never seen combat for the past 5,000 years. So I don't know. Again, comments, tell me what you think. Because to be honest, I don't For me, experience is a big thing when it comes to an actual security force, and I don't think the Custodes have it. They have the best of everything. He's practically glazing on them right here, right now, but I don't think so. I see a very inexperienced security force. Yeah, I know some of them has been there from the beginning, since the inception of the Empire, but guess what? They haven't seen action since the inception, since the heresy. So, yeah.
And ending their lives. Each strike deflected is an opportunity to know their enemy more and learn from their patterns. They are truly the Emperor's bodyguards, masters of close combat, enemy knowledge, and reactions measured in milliseconds. Though the Custodians are a part of the Adeptus Terra, the members of the Guard only answer to their own leadership and the Emperor himself. The leader of the Custodes is known as the Captain General, and individual squads of Custodians are overseen by a shield captain. As their focus is on the Emperor, their command center is located within the Imperial Palace. The Tower of Hedron.
See, here's another thing. For some reason, I have yet to actually encounter an audiobook or a book that particularly describes Terra. I don't know. I mean, we've had that video before, like, there are actually nice places to live within the Imperium, but it just dawned on me that I have yet to actually encounter a book that particularly describes Terra outside of the Imperial Palace. Because I've read books about the Custodes basically describing the palace, but that's it. So, no.
Serves as their primary base of operations, but there is a dedicated elite guard of Custodians known as the Companions that stands 300 strong by the Emperor's side. In total, the Custodes are 10,000 strong, and when a member retires, their name is added to the Hall of Name and vanish across the galaxy in a cloaked disguise to serve as eyes and ears
of the Emperor.
Despite their numbers and their strength, the members of the Custodes do not consider themselves to be soldiers or warriors in any way. They see themselves strictly as the guardians of the Emperor in all facets of his presence. This extends beyond the physical. Custodians believe they represent the guarding of the Emperor's ideals and philosophies too. Their gains are both physical and literary. They are the protectorates of everything.
I mean, of course they do. What else? How else would they think of themselves?
The Emperor stood for, and in doing so, the Custodians are also artisans and scholars, in addition to being the Golden Guard of the Golden Throne. However, due to this nature of being protectorates, they have a very strong view when it comes to the Space Marines and the Primarchs. The Emperor himself had insinuated many times that once the galaxy was brought to heel, that there would be no need for the Space Marines anymore, and they were to go the same way that the Thunder Warriors went before them. The Custodes were meant to be the judge, jury, and executioner of this will, and are biologically designed not only to be able to take down Space Marine with ease, but to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Primarch as well.
With the Primarch as well. I remember with the whole Grey Wolves thing, about a month, roughly what? About a month back, there was this issue with regards to that GW released this info that the Grey Wolves were tasked that if ever the Emperor rises from the throne, it's their job to basically put him back. So it's going to be the Grey Wolves versus these guys. And of course, it's up for debate, or it's basically a coin toss as to who exactly is going to win. Each and every one of them's got a point, but then again, I haven't been here long enough to actually provide an informed or an educated opinion.
Heresy.
With regards as to who will win, Grey Wolves versus Custodes. Again, tell me what you think. Comments, please.
Custodians muse on how suspiciously easy it was to kill Chaos Space Marines, as if they were trained and made for that explicit purpose. Constantine Valdor, one of the closest advisors of the Emperor, was asked if he ever disagreed with Big E on something, and he said,
he would have said that it is not for me to Agree or disagree? I am merely a weapon. I am merely the Emperor's spear. Is that what he would have said? Because with that face, it would have been typical.
Once, with the formation
once. Okay, my bad! I was clearly wrong.
Of the Primarchs.
I feel I do my best, but they don't.
Let me ask you a very fair question. What do you do successfully? Quickly.
Hey, Sir Boy Vulcan.
I hate that every time we're in Untucked, the conversations are about me.
And besides the trained distrust for Space Marines, the Custodians also have evidence for their distrust. The Horus Heresy saw half of the chapters fall to chaos and turn traitor against the Emperor.
But they do have
in
a
the
point.
mind of a Custodian, the fact that half of the Space Marines fell before means that the other half can fall with
and will fall again. Based on the direction that we're seeing.
ease. They are fully capable of wiping out literally any force put against them, and in a sense are the final representation of the golden age of terror. However, they are forced to stand in silent and blind service to the Emperor and to the ill of the Imperium. And they, for 10,000 years, have stood vigil over the Imperium and have watched its rise and fall with the inability to do anything about it. While they do go out and fight some battles here and there, at the end of the day, the vastness of the Imperium means
they fight a battle here and there, what, in between 5,000-10,000 years?
That the closest advisors to the Emperor himself are powerless to make any change. But goddamn, can they kill a Space Marine?
Here in our little island, there's a joke. No ID, no entry. Yeah, I know you don't get it.
For 100 years, I stood my watch amidst the somber shadows of the Sanctum Imperialis. I was still as a statue, but always ready, always attuned to dangers unseen. Days, months, years passed by in a frenzied blur beyond those walls, yet within, little moved and nothing changed. For 100 years, I did not but wait.
See, this is what I was talking about. For 100 years, I did not but wait. When was the last time he saw action? An effective security force needs actual experience, and this dude has been standing in front of a door for like 100 years. Yes, he's got training, he's got the best of everything, but still, 100 years with no actual combat experience? Is he gonna be effective? Again, comments please.
Yet had any threat appeared, I would have struck it down in a heartbeat. For 100 years I stood my watch, and as it ends I can tell you this. Patience is a...
Yeah, I'm not impressed. Yeah, not impressed. Fight me. Not impressed.
Weapon. Of course, a threat directly to Terra itself would appear to be something foolish. It's in the deepest parts of Imperial space and is one of the most defended bastions in the galaxy. You'd truly have to be foolhardy or insane to think that you can take on Terra itself. However, one faction certainly got close. In the dark ages of the stars and in a river of misery, there is one faction having a cracking old time. The galaxy sees them as savages, yet they have already figured out the questions of the universe. Their numbers are uncountable, their technology incomprehensible, and yet their violence is so very green. I am, of course, talking about the
Britannia ruled the waves.
The orcs are the pinnacle of creation. For them, the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst. Who are we to judge them? We Eldar who have failed, or the humans on the road to ruin in their turn? And why? Because we saw answers to questions that an orc wouldn't even bother to ask. We see a culture that...
I'm guessing there's enlightenment in simplicity. Because what else could be out there but Wa? What could be more important than Wa?
as strong and despise it as crude. During the war in heaven, the old ones were doing their best to spawn as many combatants to their cause as possible by seeding the galaxy in a specialized sense. The Eldar were made to be a precise and tactical species to fight off the Catan and the Necrons, but another prominent species was made by them as well. The Krork were warriors clad in ornate armor with more dangerous—
What? It's punk! I like it!
Weaponry. However, things changed, and these warriors changed, and the Krork are no more. They are now known as the boys, the lads, the mates, the orcs, orcs. An orc in 40k looks like an orc in most other fantasy media. Hulking, warlike monstrosities with big teeth and worse attitudes. However, unlike the more Tolkien-esque forms of these creatures, the devastating—
Oh yeah, I'm gonna play orcs in the upcoming Blood Bowl League. Just realized.
Of the orcs is in their biology. Unlike most species in the galaxy, the orcs are actually a type of fungus. This fungus itself comes in various forms. The small goblin-like Gretchen and snotlings are a part of this fungal ecosystem as well, and also the squigs, which can be used for—
I sort of stopped listening. I'm just trying to enjoy the music right now.
Basically anything. But regardless of what is a part of the fungal system, all of them are born from spores that land on the ground and grow. As they travel around the galaxy, they drop spores literally everywhere, and then an orc dies, and they drop tons of fungal spores that allows for their numbers to be replenished over a period of time. Because of this, orcs are not only extremely prominent across the galaxy, but they are exceptionally resilient due to their growing cycle. Even if one orc lands on a planet, it will be nearly impossible to get rid of all of the orc presence unless the planet itself is completely destroyed. And even then,
wait,
find a way to survive.
Completely destroyed? Has there been a case of exterminatus because of an orc invasion or orc presence? Comments, please. That's something.
Due to their fungal nature, orcs don't really stop growing, and the more long-lived an orc is, the bigger they get, and the more an orc fights, the bigger they get. Of course, since they're constantly getting into scraps, an orc's lifespan isn't necessarily that long, so the bigger orcs are harder to find. Though alongside this, however, they are a tribe-based species that is comprised of war bands, and the biggest and the strongest orc leads the war band, known as the war boss. At the bottom end of the orc tribal system are the Gretchens and the Snotlings. These members act as the servants and slaves of the orcs, and sometimes their actual ammunition, despite being a bit smarter and more cunning than their bigger brethren. Because
their actual ammunition.
In orc culture, the biggest is the boss. The smallest gets picked on and thrown around. Beyond the war bands and the tribes, orcs also belong to a specific clan. Tribes constantly shatter and rebuild, but the clans do not. They are, in a sense, a psychological state of being for any given orc, and gives an orc their specific character and traits. And to make things easier, these clans are also color-coded, so that's very easy to tell what orc does what. Though there are many clans out there, 6 of them are the most prominent and well-known. The Bad Moons are essentially the merchants and have a lot of money because their currency is teeth, and they grow teeth faster than any others. The Blood Axes are the stealth unit.
That doesn't make any sense because inflation.
And by stealth, it means like slightly more quiet than the others, and they have a love for LARPing as humies. Death Skulls are the scavengers, and the Goths are the close combat specialists. And on the 2 ends of the spectrum, we also have the tech-savvy evil sons.
Again, guys, we have to remember that he's talking about the tabletop game.
The more traditionalist and tribal snakebites. Another major facet of orcs is their religious beliefs. They believe in 2 gods, Gork and Mork. Gork is cunningly brutal, and
never really figured out myself the distinction between these two.
And Mork is brutally cunning. The difference between them, according to orcs, is that Mork hits you when you aren't looking, and Gork hits you when you are. There's a lot of confusion as to which one is which, and this results in a lot of infighting. In other species, this would be considered a sort of religious conflict, but for the orcs, it's just another excuse to fight. I have a quote here, but I don't really do a good orc voice. So I'm going to get my co-host of That's Ridiculous to read this one, and I'll try to lip sync it.
Oh, he's more cunning in a grot and more killing than a dread. The boys that follow me can't be beat. On Piscina, we jumped the Marine boys, and our boss pose was
Yeah, we didn't need to do this. He didn't need to do this.
covered in the helmets we took from the dead-ends. We burned their port and killed their bosses and left nothing but ruins behind. I'm Warlord Gezgul Mac Uruk-Drucker, and I speak with the word of the gods. We's gonna stomp the universe flat and kill anything what fights back. We's gonna do this, cause we're orcs, and we was made.
Who needs evolution when you have Wah? I mean, it's all that matters, right? Wah.
To fight and win.
It's because
Wow.
it sounds terrible. Fighting is the biggest aspect of orc culture, and it's essentially their life's purpose. They are genetically hardwired to get into battles and scraps with enemies that can feel pain. The more they fight, the bigger they get. This, combined with them getting bigger over time, means that some of the biggest and baddest orcs of all time have been notably gigantic. The Beast, as he was known, was for the size of an imperial.
If I'm not mistaken, he was the reason why the Death Watch was created. Am I right? Because again, humanity was at the brink of extinction because of this particular orc. Until they created a Death Watch or something. Am I right? Is it the Death Watch? Comments, please.
Imperial Knight. If an orc runs out of other enemies to fight, they will immediately start infighting to scratch the battle itch. For example, in The Warp, a planet exists where a band of orcs are in a constant state of war and battle, and have been for an improbably long amount of time, strictly because how much Khorne enjoys himself watching it. For some, being trapped in a perpetual war planet for all eternity would be a fate worse than death, but to the boys, this is heaven. In the event of a particularly big battle, a massive amount of tribes and warbands will unite under what is known as the Waaagh. The concept of a Waaagh covers a few bases. The first is the group aspect of the massive green tidal wave of orcs fighting for the same cause, the cause being the second base. But the most prominent aspect of the Waaagh is the psychic aspect of it. Remember how the old ones made the Eldar and all the Eldar are psychic? Well, the orcs are too, kinda, but just not as much. Only a little bit of it. And they often don't know how to use it and frankly don't care. But a huge gathering of orcs generates a psychic field that allows orcs to be more organized, dangerous, and dedicated to the war-based cause. However, the true extent of the psychic energy and its usage is relatively unknown.
Hold up. Hold up. Bit of a break, you guys. Bit of a break. Something's happening behind me. Oh, my apologies, children. Anyways, hold on. Let me just adjust myself again. There we go. Okay, we're good. Where were we?
But that doesn't matter considering the outcome 90% of the time. In a similar sense, their ragtag technology and weaponry is also a mystery to most who encounter it purely because of that Waaagh energy. The technology the orcs use seem to be held together with duct tape and plastic glue, and crude doesn't even begin.
Did they pray? It would have been duct tape and prayers.
Describe it. Their guns seem to have an inordinate amount of ammunition and firepower, and they are seemingly able to put things together on the fly in the middle of combat. The Imperium is of the mind that the orcs' weapons and machinery only work due to their innate psychic ability, but realistically, orc gear hardly works in the first place. Weapons blow up in a Bugs Bunny-esque manner all the time, and their war buggies can collapse in the middle of battle. Just because it works a handful of times does not mean it's an effective weapon, but this doesn't stop the orcs and their green tide.
It is effective. I mean, they almost pushed back the Imperium to the brink of extinction. It would have been effective. It is effective. That means it can only be effective.
To really understand the power of the Waaagh energy, orcs can operate purely off of belief. Now, a misconception is that orcs believe something is real and it happens. But that isn't true, because that's just one orc. However, there's never one orc. There's normally a few billion orcs together, and if they all believe something is true, the warp will tend to respond with a positive green light. Sometimes. Do the red ones go faster? Well, with enough orcs, yeah. How does an orc buggy with an engine block that's just a boulder with vroom vroom written in chalk work? Who cares?
Who
Orcs
knows?
breathing on a ship with a hull breach? Go ahead. An orc went back in time to kill a version of himself so he could have 2 of his favorite weapons. It is shenanigans. Because of their actions and aesthetic,
Why
the
not?
orcs tend to be presented in a comic relief sense in a lot of media, particularly the media from their perspective. They are bumbling and loud and goofy British football hooligans, and they say silly things and act in silly ways. But to the citizens of the
Because how else could they be represented, right?
Imperium, the orcs are far from funny. They are violent
they're not.
and irrational creatures that take humans for punching bags, slaves, or ultimately dinner. They have no moral compass and are violent and brutal killers that know nothing else. They are genetically designed to be a violent species that was capable of beating back the Necrons and the Catan. And if the orcs were ever able to unify under one banner, they would be utterly unstoppable. However, due to their aggressive nature, their organizational skills are non-existent, and they tend to just beat each other up for the fun of it. All that exists in the mind of an orc is fighting, and nothing else. If they wipe out their enemies, they will inevitably wipe themselves out as well. They are a brutal Ouroboros doomed to an endless war cycle, but to an orc, why does it matter? If they fight and they win, they win. If they fight and they die, it was a good fight.